See, we always associate her with investment. So that I don't steal your thunder, I'm going to turn over now to Minister Cummins. After her, we will hear from Mr. Michael Bailey, followed by Chairman Williams.
Thank you very much, Roy. It's our pleasure to be here streaming live around the world, but certainly to our viewers at home in Barbados from Miami, Florida, where the Sea Trade Conference has begun. We had the first sessions earlier today, but certainly for Delegation Barbados, we have been here in Miami for the last week. And we've spent that time meeting with our partners. I believe our very first meeting on arrival in Miami last week was with the partners. Michael, thank you so much for hosting us at Royal Caribbean headquarters. You and your team, Russell, have been phenomenal. And so we had that engagement during the course of last week, but that really is a culmination of what all of us know has been a very difficult 2 years, certainly for the cruise industry. Here in Miami, we're surrounded by people who understood what it was for ships to stop sailing, for our ports to become silent to cruise ships, and for our passengers and crew alike to be stranded globally. But for those of us from Barbados, we especially know what it was like to be a friend to the cruise industry in the worst of times and to partner with all of them. And it was interesting today, earlier in the session to which you referred, Roy, to hear Russell in his contribution on the panel on resilience talk about what it was like to collaborate across the industry, all cruise lines, and to collaborate across partners as a destination. And he did make mention of the fact that he could call on Barbados at 3 o'clock in the morning and we would answer the phone. And really that has been who Barbados has been in the cruise industry. And collaboratively together with Michael, over the last year and a half, Prime Minister Motley chaired the America's Cruise Task Force, which brought together all of the destinations from the Caribbean, and perhaps I should say the Americas, because as far down as Mexico and Central America and all of the Anglophone, Francophone, and Spanish-speaking Caribbean came together and worked on how we would get the industry going together with a common approach to resumption. And so we're here together for the first time in 3 years, is it, Michael?
It feels like it.
Yeah. At Sea Trade again, where the entire industry has gathered. And today we have an opportunity to sign an agreement, a memorandum of cooperation between Royal Caribbean and Barbados, specifically on the issue of the identification of employment opportunities for workers on board cruise ships. And Royal Caribbean, you have been a tremendous partner. I think that, Michael, all of us now are, and have been for the last 2 years or so, we're on a WhatsApp basis because we're friends, but I think we've developed a familial relationship over the last few years. And so we're looking forward to welcoming on board Royal Caribbean ships around the world, Barbadian workers who are family to the royal family as well. And so we have met with them. We have agreed on a broad range of employment opportunities for Barbadians in a range of areas. And we're talking here about our creatives, our entertainers, photographers, persons who work in hotel and hospitality management. And if we know one thing about Barbados is that Barbados is well known for our hospitality. We are warm, especially when it comes to our cruise partners, and we're looking forward to this new partnership with Royal Caribbean, getting more Barbadians employed on board cruise ships, traveling the world and taking Barbados and our hospitality with it, and working with you to develop even more opportunities. I want to take a minute just to say that this conference over the last I think few years has also been an opportunity for us to work with industry in a very seamless way to bring more cruise lines to Barbados and to increase the number of ship calls. And so we're looking forward to a strong winter season. We've been working with the partners here on what that looks like. And I'm happy to also share that in tribute to the close relationship that we enjoy with the cruise industry, one of the things that we have done over the past week is to share with our partners that we are moving our primary cruise operations from Bridgetown to here in Miami, so that we're not just interacting with you, on an annual basis or on the telephone, but our teams are going to be anchored, and I'm going to ask our chairman of the BTMI, who is going to be leading that charge, to share in detail about that a little later. But I'm going to hand over to Michael, who is really the star of the moment, I think, to share a little bit about the partnership with Royal and Barbados. Michael.
Well, thank you. I'm pleased to see I'm the star of the moment. I appreciate that. I'd like to, on behalf of Royal Caribbean Group and Royal Caribbean International, first of all, I'd like to thank Prime Minister Mia Mottley for all of the incredible work that she did in helping steer America's Cruise Task Force and bring together so many different cruise companies and destinations and have very meaningful, productive discussions about getting ourselves back on our feet. And also thank you, Senator, for your incredible participation during this past 2.5 years. And the journey that we've been through has been extraordinary and very challenging. I'd also like to thank Barbados. For those of you who may need a quick revisit of the horrors of the last 2.5 years, which I'm sure that's nobody here. But in the beginning of the pandemic, when the world shut down, we, Royal Caribbean, along with the entire cruise industry, and in fact the entire maritime industry, was stuck with tens and tens of thousands of crew members on our ships all over the world, not just a Royal Caribbean issue. I believe it went to the United Nations as a significant issue. And literally, the world shut down. There was no possibility for us to get our crew members home. There were shifting and changing protocols and rules that were constantly moving around. Even getting citizens of a country back to their country was unbelievably complicated and impossible. And we, Royal Caribbean, had over 50,000 crew members from 100 different countries around the world who were in constant quarantine lockdowns on board of our ships, who desperately wanted to get home to their family and friends. And it was Barbados that stepped up and was incredibly supportive and helpful in allowing Royal Caribbean and other cruise companies to bring their ships to Bridgetown and to arrange charter flights literally to all over the world. And we got, I think, maybe 20,000 of our crew off our ships in Barbados, and we got them home, and it would not have been possible if not for the cooperation of the people of Barbados. So thank you for that. I feel quite emotional, actually, speaking about that. And the relationship with Barbados has been a phenomenal relationship with Royal Caribbean for over 5 decades. And I think that partnership really came through over the last couple of years in response to all of that incredible cooperation. By the way, I have to say that we even used some of our ships to move our crew around in different locations. We sent ships from the Caribbean to India with thousands of Indian crew members on. We sent ships from the Caribbean to the getting our crew members home to their families. So you can see it was a very challenging logistical issue. So we really do want to express our thanks to the people of Barbados for thank you. Testing, testing. That's why you're the senator. So we really do want to thank everybody in Barbados for really being incredibly supportive. We also home-ported one of our ships in Barbados this past season, and I can't remember how many guests we brought onto those ships, but it must have been in the tens of thousands of tourists that we brought into Barbados who sailed on our ship from Bridgetown and returned to Bridgetown and obviously had the opportunity to see the beauties of Barbados. So again, we thank you for that. We look forward to another season coming up where we, again, will be operating from Bridgetown. The other thing I think that we're very pleased with is, I think one thing that became clear to us during this pandemic is that the relationships that we've all had for so many years, I think perhaps sometimes you neglect them, but then you realize when the chips are down that all of those relationships and connections that you've built over decades really do matter when things are difficult. And one of those things I think that we've had discussions about is deepening our commitment to Barbados, and I think today reflects that in the signing of an agreement with regards to hiring, recruiting, and not only across typical traditional hotel-style positions, but also in the entertainment space, where we have, obviously a vast entertainment organization, musicians, choreographers, dancers, etc. And our intention is to recruit all of that talent, not all of it, but much of the talent from Barbados. So we look forward to executing against this agreement as we move forward. And again, thank you for all of your help and support during this. And I think now I'll hand over. No, I'll just keep this microphone because maybe yours works.
I'm not too sure if mine works, but Michael.
It sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you so much on behalf of the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. Relationships are very, very important to us in Barbados. And when we got together and had this discussion, yes, traditionally, we would have discussions about getting more tourists or getting more ports of call or things of that nature. But the new tourism authority and the new BTMI, and under a mandate of our minister, is to also talk about opportunity for our people within the sectors. And so it was so important that we met with you, and you readily agreed because of our great relationship, and I thank you so much for doing it. And I heard you talk about, and the minister talk about the musicians and the creatives, but you didn't stop there. When I looked at the list of jobs that will be available to our Barbadians, we're talking about from engineering to carpenters, to plumbers, to electricians, to seamen and people in sports, youth. There's a cross-section. That is the largest cross-section I have ever seen, and I'm so excited to be on board. And I think you are now going to lead the way for other discussions from other cruise lines for us to have this kind of relationship. And I thank you for being the trendsetter. I thank you for being the trailblazer and allowing us the opportunity to bring this to our people. We went through a very difficult time. As you well know, we were with you. Our jobs all depended on tourism as that all came to a grinding halt. And our Prime Minister, being who she is, she repurposed a lot of people into and retooled a lot of our tourism employees into doing something different, helping out in COVID and other things. Now we are back open. COVID is coming to an end. And through your help and initiatives like this, we are able to retool those people and transition them back into tourism. So I thank you so much. I'm happy to be a part of it. And I'm looking forward to welcome you in for our sea fair and our job fair that's going to be coming up in a couple of, 6 weeks or so? Shortly. So please stay tuned to our Barbadians. Please stay tuned. We are going to be listening and we're going to be organizing it. You'll hear more in the coming weeks. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to put an additional bit of information out there, We did mention that our operations for cruise are moving from Barbados, and they will be anchored here in Miami. And the team here in Miami is going to be positioned to work with the cruise lines on a range of things, but let's talk about employment for a moment. So all of the relationships with the cruise lines and partners like Michael and Royal Caribbean will be anchored out of our Miami office with support from our Barbados office, so that we're constantly in recruiting mode, we're constantly in training mode, we're constantly in developmental mode, and that we're working with our partners on the ground in Barbados to bring them live and direct to our partners here in Miami. And that, of course, we're going to be ensuring that the Barbadian brand of hospitality is world-class, it is available, and that people are going to be able to see Destination Barbados through our people, not just our people on island, but our people who will be working on board the ships, who will then be able to tell the story of who we are as Barbadians while earning their livelihoods. And that's a balance that we in the tourism team are very committed to. So I think we have a signing to get to, Michael. Let's take straight.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Do you have a different contract? Thank you.
Let's stand up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Come, Shells.
Thank you very much. We will now open the floor for questions, and we are short on mic, so you'll use mine. I'll come to you.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you very much for this conference. Ann Kailash with Seatrade. I'd like to ask about how many people you hope to be employed by Royal Caribbean, and when the first workers will begin making their way to the ships. And one last question, who will be heading the office in Miami here? Thank you.
Michael, you want to answer the first one? And how many?
So hello?
Let's see.
I think I can answer some parts of the question, Anne. How many people will we be hiring from Barbados? I don't know the answer to that question. I can tell you that if you look at our crew population, it's approximately 50,000 crew from all over the world. We turn over the crew, in other words, people who leave and move on to other careers. It's give or take around 15 to 20% a year. So you think of 10% of 50,000 is 5,000. It's about 10,000 new crew a year that Royal Caribbean hires. And then you add on top of that new ships. And typically as a corporation, it's anywhere from 2 to 3 new ships a year. So that's around 6,000, give or take, new crew that come into the corporation. We put our experienced crew on our new ships. So I think that adds up to a lot of crew members. I'm going to guess it's about, I can't remember the math, I think it's 16,000, 20,000 crew a year. I think you'll find that most cruise companies are in a very similar position, particularly if they continue to grow, which most are. And then, so you can take a percentage of that number, and I think it's fair to say it'll be a fairly significant number. As for the amount of time it takes, normally once we've gone through the recruiting process, which I think we're trying to coordinate a final date for the recruitment fair, if it's in, say, 6 to 8 weeks' time, then typically when we hire people, we from the point of being recruited, it usually takes anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks before they're then assigned to their ship. And so, it's probably, let me think, it's probably about 4 or 5 months before we start seeing the new crew from Barbados arriving on our ships. As a ballpark, it could be sooner, obviously. And then I think the other questions are over to you on the
Do you want to speak on that, Minister?
We had, I think we've had a vacant post for Director of Cruise for some time, and we were rationalizing how we would treat to the cruise industry, certainly during the period of the pandemic. And one of the concerns that we had, certainly in the tourism team, in the absence of having that post filled, was what is the business of cruise? And so we've applied that across the tourism sector as a whole. What is the business of tourism? And so here we will be starting the office during the course of this year with a senior business development officer who is currently based at our headquarters in Barbados, and they will transfer out to Miami. But then once the office is definitively set up, we will have the new director of cruise recruited, and they will be based here in Miami. But what I would say as well is that we are collaborating on this jointly with the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. and the Barbados Port Inc. as well, because there must be that collaboration around how we attract ships in terms of the marketing and how we facilitate ships in terms of ships actually arriving and the ship's call. And so that partnership is meant to evolve during the course of this month. We're expecting by late summer, we should have that fully operationalized, and that by the time the winter season rolls around, our full operation out of Miami will be up and running. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, Gary Barker, All Things Cruise. Is this a first of its kind partnership in the cruise industry?
I would think it's a landmark.
Michael?
Really? Is it? You know.
I mean, when you think about the cruise industry and relationships that the cruise industry has around the world, there are very different shapes and forms of these kind of relationships. If you look at the Philippines, for example, which is a major source of employees for the industry, there's been a long relationship. And in the Philippines, they have seafarers, not only just cruise, but seafarers is one of the major exports of the Philippines, or it was. I think they have hundreds of thousands of seafarers that come from the Philippines. And there, for a long time, there's been a governmental authority called the Philippines Overseas Employment Authority, which really helps curate these relationships, not only with crews, but seafarers, hotel workers, construction workers that leave the Philippines to work around the world. And many different countries have different shapes of that type of arrangement. I would say in the Caribbean, we've had long-standing relationships for a long time. I think this is probably one of the most formalized kind of agreements that we're putting into place. And I think again, it's testimony to not only the relationship that we've had for a long time, but certainly what happened over the last couple of years and recognition of the real strength of these relationships. We've also spoken about figuring out ways of deepening the commercial relationship with the local artisans in a different, more thoughtful way, so we can improve the kind of the business that comes to the local communities and the local artisans, not only enhancing the customer experience, but also enhancing the experience for local craftspeople, where they can have a better opportunity of generating revenues and what have you. So I think I would say it's unique in the sense that the discussions that we've had have been 360, not just focused on one dimension of a relationship between ourselves and Barbados, but talking about all of the relationships, whether it's supply chain, whether it's hiring and recruiting, whether it's tours and shore excursions, enhancing artisan revenue streams through connection to the customers. It's a very 360, and I would say a very strategic approach by Barbados that has been both refreshing and different. So I would say it's a unique relationship, and I'm very encouraged, and we're very much looking forward to developing this relationship, and hopefully it will become the model for many other countries.
So if I can just add two things in terms of where we started this conversation. When Michael was introducing the relationship with Barbados and what happened during the pandemic, one of the things that he talked about was the fact that they had to get crew members home and how difficult it was even to get some countries to accept their own citizens. And we know as Barbados that Barbados always says that Barbadians are always able to come home. So whether it was by air or by sea, Barbadians always were able to come home. And so now what we've done is we've even taken that a little bit further by now legislating new maritime provisions that protect seafarers. And so that has been something that has been done by what was our Ministry of Maritime Affairs and the Blue Economy. And that allows for a mechanism that protects seafarers, whether on cruise ships or cargo ships, wherever they are, under Barbados's laws. So that's been an important, I think, just putting the legislative framework around what our policy position has been around empathy and protection for workers. And then on the second part of it, which Michael has spoken about in terms of the connections with artisans and local communities and so on, one of the things that Destination Barbados, in terms of cruise and the operations out of Miami, will be doing will be to focus, yes, on those employment opportunities that we're very happy to have worked through with Royal today, but also the connections around curated, authentic Barbadian experiences when cruise ships come to the island and they're able to connect directly with partners. And here on this delegation, for example, we're joined, for instance, by taxi operators who are here. Two of them are here in the room representing the Bridgetown Taxi Associations. There are two of them. And we've curated a series of tours and packages under the umbrella of Bridgetown Alive, Barbados Alive. And that allows you to create the mechanisms between small operators, small partners, large partners, and that also is about bringing that authenticity to the cruise industry and working collaboratively with our partners. And so all of that is going to be done here. One of the other things that we did talk about, Michael mentioned it, was the provision of Barbadian niche products to the cruise ship. So we talk about provisioning all the time, but one of the key things that we have been working on here with our cruise partners has been how do we identify niche, special Barbadian products. So, and one of those key things that we've talked about has been rum. And I'm sure I said to Michael and to Russell, I should never walk on board a Royal Caribbean cruise ship and not see Barbados's rum. Barbados is the home of rum. So those are some of the things that we're working through with Royal Caribbean, and we're really excited about the strategic partnership that we are forging. And I can commit that by the end of this year, together with BTMI under the leadership of the chairman, Ms. Shelley Williams, and the chairmanship of the Barbados Port Inc. and the entire team. Peter is here, the entire team. We have our product team with us. We have our taxi association teams with us. We have our operations team with us. This is the strategic partnership that allows us to be able to break down those silos and to work together in the interest of Destination Barbados. And so Destination Barbados has a single voice and a single face as it is external facing to deal with all of our partners. And we're happy to bring that collaborative approach to our engagement with Royal Caribbean and to Sea Trade in Miami this week.
Hi, I'm Laurel Herman with Recommend Magazine. I wanted to find out if you had a projection, Michael, of how many more ships will be coming into Barbados and when?
We want to hear the answer to that,
Yeah. Thank you.
For Royal Caribbean?
Yes.
Well,
Is this
yes,
working?
with your partnership, I mean, do you have an idea or a projection when and how many new ships might be coming to Barbados?
Yes, I do.
Oh, good. You going to tell us?
No. So, you know, we are in a, even though the last couple of years we've all worked together well as an industry in terms of collaborating through all of this, we're also all fiercely competitive, and we never, ever talk about deployment of our ships until they're put through the normal cycle, which is typically about 12 to 18 months, because we open them for sale. So even though we may be in discussions with governments in Barbados or around the world, we never really talk about where we're going to deploy our new ships. I can tell you that Icon of the Seas, which is our new ship coming next year, will be in the Caribbean. That's the best I can do. You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Just to close off then, no? Question?
Yeah. Sorry, Minister, since we didn't get a chance to do the Zoom link with the Barbadian media, there's a question from Loop News. They want to know how much it will cost to set up the Barbados office here in Miami.
Well, the beauty of it in terms of the cost is that we already have and have always had a country team approach to all of Barbados's embassies, high commissions, and consulates around the world. So we already have an existing office here in Miami. It is headquartered in the Consulate of Barbados. We have Barbados Tourism offices in Brussels, in New York, in London. We have also in, I forgot something anywhere? Canada. And in Canada as well. So what we're doing is simply repurposing that which we already have and putting it into a far more strategic business framework. So the beauty of it is that it doesn't cost us anything new because the setup is already there. Yeah, we're just using resources differently. It makes more sense for us to do it that way. And just to close out, I was going to just say that you mentioned seafarers and Michael talks about ships generally. We actually leave here now to go to another meeting. Now, in this instance, the port is going to be in the lead with us, and we will be meeting with all of the owners of the cargo ships, the Florida Ship Owners Group, and they're going to be working with us on cargo and how we're going to make sure that we treat the issues of the supply chain in the Caribbean. So we're off to do that next. So we're always very careful to say that the Ministry of Tourism is also the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport. So international transport very much does include cargo, and so that's going to be our next agenda item at 2 o'clock this afternoon. So thank you all very much for being here today. Thank you, Michael. Thank you to the members of the press. We really appreciate you, and we're committed to working in the interest of the cruise industry.